Welcome everyone. My name is Vlad and I'm pastor at Vision Church, and I'm really privileged and honored to have Pastor Paul Hodgson with us as we're going to look at the minister and his or her relationships. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Vlad, because really this is all your own idea. And I'm very happy to do this with you. So it's really good.
Thank you. I remember that as a young minister, when I first became a pastor here, you really stood by me, walked by me, and I know it's how important it is for a young minister like me to have like a sounding board, a mentor, a father figure, spiritually speaking. And I know that as I have been blessed over the years by your wisdom, those who will listen will be blessed as well. So why would you say that relationships are important in the life of a minister?
Yeah, well, this whole series of podcasts is basically about relationships. And I think the starting point is that relationships, and we'll come back to this time and time again, are always two-way. Would you agree?
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, it could be literally a momentary relationship where you meet somebody for the first time, you say hello, nice to meet you, and they hopefully say hello, nice to meet you as well. And that could be it. But obviously, from then on, relationships can grow.
Yeah. And if I may ask, how can a minister develop a strong relationship with God, and why is that important?
Well, I think that more than developing a strong relationship with God, we can grow in our closeness to God, put it that way. And to kind of illustrate that, let me tell you the parable of Rosa.
Okay, haven't heard that one before.
Well, Rosa is my little granddaughter, and she's just over 2 years old now. Before she was born, we had no idea of what she would be like. But the moment that she was born, all of the big people in her life just absolutely fell in love with her, and we love her so much. And obviously for her, her relationship with us from the very beginning was a relationship of total dependence. And then, as she began to grow, she would recognize me and obviously her mother and father, and obviously she's far closer to them than anybody else. But that relationship began to grow. She calls me Papa. And from before she was 1 year old, she would recognize me, and when I walked in the door, she would smile and she would, show that she was pleased to see me. Which I think is an amazing thing about young children, the way they are so sociable, the way they relate to people. Anyway, as time has gone on, obviously I've spent time with Rosa, and obviously all relationships can only grow when you spend time together. Yeah. But obviously as well, she is closer to some people more than others. So, for example, this last Monday was a bank holiday, and we went together out for the day. And that was my son, my daughter, her mother was working, and me. So my daughter Abigail said to Rosa, "Oh, hold Papa's hand." And she said, "No." So she's already making the boundaries. In terms of what and I think that all of this we can relate back to our relationship with God. First of all, when we're born again, that's when our relationship with God begins.
Yes.
Straight away. And it's all on his side. And it's all total love and acceptance, which is phenomenal, the way that God loves us. And then from then on, we can start to grow closer to him. And basically, it's a relationship of total dependence. You know, that is the most important thing. My relationship with God is a relationship of dependence, and the older I get, the more I need his help
Yes.
with
Wow.
everything.
Wow.
And so it's love on God's side, dependence on my side, but I also can put the boundaries. And there are times when I say, I don't want to hold your hand, God, as it were. You know, that I'm stopping that relationship at that point to a degree.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, you know, it's more important that our relationship gets closer and closer to God. In terms of me developing that's putting the onus onto me. But I think in the first instance, it's God. It's a relationship with God who loves me. And also when we look at Jesus and his relationship with God, you know, 3 times in the Gospel of John, Jesus says, the Father loves me.
Yeah.
And Jesus knew how much the Father loved him. At his baptism, you know, the Father says, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased.
Yeah.
And Jesus' ministry was based on that relationship, came out of that relationship. And he wants to relate everybody back to God in the way that he related to God. And, you know, Jesus totally depended upon God in his earthly ministry. His whole earthly ministry was a relationship of dependence upon God. And there were times when he spent whole nights in prayer.
Yeah.
And that's what his ministry came out of. His ministry came out of his relationship.
Wow. That's very powerful. So in a way, it's like what makes a relationship strong is actually that understanding of dependency that we have on God. And then as we minister out of the love that we know we receive from God right from the moment he saved us. So therefore, like, we are totally loved and accepted, and because of that, we minister, right? I think this is powerful to understand, because I know that as ministers, sometimes we're so focused on doing this, and that, and we forget, like you're saying about Jesus, the Father loves me. And I don't know, like, how many ministers, especially some of the younger ones, wake up on a normal Monday morning after a busy Sunday to say, you know what, God, thank you that you love me. So basically, a strong relationship is one of dependency and proximity or closeness to God. And therefore, basically, I need to make decisions that help me be close to God, and then minister and live life out of that, right? I mean, that's sort of what I understand.
I think you put it really, really well there. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Thank
very
you.
powerful. Thank you, Paul. A question I had here, and it's one that I've heard as I was growing up, even in Romania. It's on the lines of, basically, we always hear that our priorities should be God, family, and church, and in that order, right? At least that's what I heard growing up. Do you agree with this? And if yes, what is the difference between these relationships in a snapshot? I know we're going to talk about them more, but I was curious about this question.
Well, actually, in my experience, before obviously you had that sort of idea and teaching, it was kind of the opposite way round. It was God first, then the church, and then the family.
Interesting.
And that is scary.
Wow.
So I think we've learnt of more recent years that we've got to be really careful about that.
So basically you grew up with basically God, church, and family, but at some point before my lifetime, things have sort of changed.
Or maybe it would be more like God, ministry, and family.
Okay.
Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, and of course we've seen over the years some disasters that have happened because people have got things the wrong way round.
Wow. So what's the difference between God and ministry or God and church? when it comes to the life of a minister, because they tend to overlap anyway, right? Because so from my little experiences, there was a point a few years ago when I was working full-time in a church where I was doing so many things for God. I was working hard because obviously there's the excitement of being in full-time ministry. But I caught myself at some point in a situation where I was doing stuff for God, but I was not spending time with God. And it really scared me to my core, to be honest. So how can we, as ministers, make sure we understand those boundaries between ministry and our personal relationship with God?
Yeah, I think my Bible college, we had kind of a motto, which was basically, I'm paraphrasing it, was basically to love God more than to love serving him.
Wow.
It's true that we can end up being so busy in the ministry. It's like a 24-hour a day job in a way.
Yeah.
Ministry can really overtake you, and therefore it can really overtake even your relationship with God, and it can even easily overtake your relationship with your family, with your wife, with your children. So it all comes down to being aware of that, I think, and making time. And that's a bit difficult in some ways and a bit artificial. We don't want it to be like that.
Yeah. Or we don't want it to be religiously done as well, because we're in a relationship as well, right? Yeah.
So it's a matter of I think most of all, being aware of it.
Yeah.
And making sure that we do have time.
Yes.
Time for ourselves, time for God, time for everything and all the people in our lives.
Thank you. So in conclusion on this episode, I want to ask you, how do you make sure you are close to God in your normal day-to-day life?
Well, I can't say that I spend X number of hours a day praying. But what I am doing is I'm praying all through the day.
Pray without ceasing, right?
Yeah. It's more like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are times when I do need to specifically sit down and go through my prayer list. And I'll talk about that some more later on, I think. But majorly, and one of the things I've really need to do even more is to pray in tongues.
Okay.
I do it, but again, it's a choice, isn't it? You choose to pray in tongues. But, I'm always challenged by what the Apostle Paul said. I thank God that I speak in tongues more than you all. And I think that, there's a very good principle there. Because when we're praying in tongues, we're praying in the Spirit. Our spirit is praying, and I just think lots of things are achieved in the spiritual realm through praying in the Spirit.
And do you feel like that also helps us to get closer to God?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
that's powerful. Thank you, Paul, for being here with us today as we looked at a minister's relationship with God. Next time we're going to talk about a minister's relationship with himself or herself. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you for today.
Okay, thank you.
Bless you.